The United Nations Security Council held an urgent meeting to discuss the Ukrainian nationalist attack against Zaporozhye nuclear power plant. A report by the European Parliament says that 77% of women in the Union believe that during the coronavirus pandemic, physical and emotional violence against women have increased. President Xi Jinping and other Chinese leaders attended the opening meeting of the 5th session of the 13th National Committee of the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference. Hello, welcome to From the South. I am Gladys Quesada, your anchor from the teleSUR studios in Caracas, Venezuela. We begin with the news. Stay with us. The United Nations Security Council had an emergency meeting on Friday in response to the sabotage actions of Ukrainian nationalists against the Zaporozhye nuclear power plant. The meeting was requested by the United States, the United Kingdom, France, Ireland, Norway, and Albania, under the pretext of an alleged Russian attack on the nuclear plant. The Russian representative to the Council, Vasily Nebezia, pointed out that the nuclear power plant was attacked by Ukrainian nationalists, but assured that it is under the protection of Russian forces and did not suffer any radioactive leakage. The Russian Ministry of Defense declared earlier that the aim of the Kiev regime's provocations at the nuclear facility is to accuse Russia of creating a hotspot of radioactive pollution. As part of the United Nations Security Council emergency meeting following the attack on Zaporozhye nuclear power plant, the permanent representative of Russia to the international body, Vasily Nebezia, reaffirmed his statements, saying his country was responsible for the incident that were simply untrue.
Today we have once again heard lies about how Russian troops attacked the Zaporozhye nuclear power plant. And this is all part of an unprecedented campaign of lies and disinformation against Russia. You're trying to present the situation in such a way as though the Zaporozhye nuclear power plant was allegedly shelled by the Russian military, as a result of which a fire broke out. These statements are simply untrue.
During his speech to the United Nations Security Council, Vasily Nebezia stated that the power plant was placed under the guard of the Russian military after an agreement was reached with the management of the place to guarantee its security and prevent interruptions of power supply.
As a result of negotiations with the management of the power plant, an agreement was reached to place it under the guard of the Russian military. The goal is to prevent the Ukrainian nationalists or other terrorist forces from taking advantage of the current situation to organize a nuclear provocation. The goal is also to ensure the security of the station and prevent interruptions in power supply to the population of Ukraine and European consumers.
And Russia considered it is essential to avoid situations or incidents that could lead to a direct confrontation between Moscow and NATO. According to Russia's permanent representative, Alexander Lukashenko, the West continues to supply weapons to Ukraine and claims that this artillery creates categorically unacceptable risks. The authority indicated that Kiev continues to pursue an irresponsible policy aimed at escalating the conflict. Lukashenko detailed that the threat of Ukrainian civilians comes not from the Russian military, attacking war targets with high-precision weapons, but from the Kiev regime that has unleashed terror against its own people by using civilians as human shields and placing heavy weaponry near kindergartens and schools. Eight days after Moscow began a special military operation in Ukraine, President Vladimir Putin urged Russia's neighbors not to escalate the tensions.
And I would also advise them not to escalate the situation, not to introduce any restrictions. We fulfill all our obligations and will continue to fulfill them. We don't see any necessity to escalate the situation, and worsen our relations. All our actions, if they're taken, are taken exclusively as a response to unfriendly actions towards the Russian Federation. I think everyone should consider normalizing relations.
The Russian government announced on Friday that it is advancing 35 humanitarian actions for some regions of Ukraine and the self-proclaimed People's Republics of Donetsk and Lugansk. The headquarters of Interdepartmental Coordination for Humanitarian Aid announced that at least 280 tons of basic goods, such as food and medicine, will be delivered to the population that remains in the custody of the Russian troops. The head of the National Defense Control Center also said that in the last 24 hours, about 5,800 people have been evacuated from Ukraine, including more than 600 children. Russian soldiers began distributing humanitarian aid, including canned food, to residents in Melitopol, which is located between Crimea and the Donbas region. The first convoy of 10 tons of fresh and canned food donatives arrived in the city of Melitopol on Thursday. Residents quickly lined up to receive the much-needed assistance from the hands of Russian special forces. Most people had been experiencing food shortages for days now, for most do not have relatives who could help them, nor the resources to get by. Russian Ombudswoman Tatiana Muskalkova expressed satisfaction about the results of the second round of talks between Moscow and Kiev to seek a negotiated solution to the conflict in the Donbas region. Tatiana Muskalkova said that she is ready to take part in an exchange of prisoners between Russia and Ukraine. The official said the decision of the governments of Moscow and Kiev to create a humanitarian corridor to evacuate the civilian population from the conflict zone and to facilitate the arrival of food supplies is a step forward. Muskalkova also said that she tried to discuss the Donbas situation with her Ukrainian counterpart, but they could not agree on the need to help people without politicizing the issue. And with more news about the conflict in Ukraine, our correspondent in Russia, Odette Diaz, gives an update.
Greetings, colleagues. Thanks for the contact. The negotiations between Russia and Ukraine seeking an early solution to the current bilateral conflict set the course of this week in a convulsive situation which today reached the 9th day of the special military operation ordered by the Russian President Vladimir Putin to demilitarize and denazify Ukraine. The Ukrainian advisor to the head of the president's office, Mikhailo Podolyak, on Friday confirmed the possibility of a third round of negotiations between March the 5th to 6th, although the Russian side has not yet confirmed the date. At the second round, which took place on March the 3rd, the parties agreed on a joint provision of humanitarian corridors for moving the civilian population out of the Ukrainian territory and the possibility of establishing a temporary ceasefire during the evacuation period. Moscow and Kiev also agreed on the possibility of facilitating the delivery of medicines and food to the places where the heaviest fighting is taking place. The attack by Ukrainian nationalist forces on the Zaporozhye nuclear power plant also set the tone in the last hours. Russian Defense Minister spokesman Major General Igor Konashenkov said that early Friday morning Ukrainian nationalist units attempt to set fire to the largest nuclear power plant in Europe, located near the city of Merkodar. The official said that the plant and the surrounding areas and the city have been under the control of the Russian troops since 28 February. Konashenkov said also that during the night, the Kiev regime made an attempt to carry out a monstrous provocation on the territory adjacent to the nuclear power plant, explaining that the Russian military guardians of the site were attacked by a sabotage group. Amid this news provocation, Konashenkov said that the Ukrainian President Zelensky's statements and his contact with the United States and the United Kingdom on the alleged threat posed by the nuclear power plant indicate an attempt to accuse Russia of creating a source of radioactive contamination in the region. The Russian National Defense Management Center reported today that 149,000 Ukrainians have been taking refuge in various Russian regions since the beginning of the special military operation in Ukraine. The organization also confirmed that the Russian army has delivered 217 tons of humanitarian aid, Yesterday alone, the population of Sunny, Kharkov, and Kherson regions received 165 tons of basic necessities, medicines, and foodstuff. Here are some of the details of what has happened so far.
Thank you, Odette, for this report, and we'll take a short break now. Join us again after this. Welcome back to From the South. In Europe, a report by the European Parliament says that 77% of women in the Union believe that the coronavirus pandemic has increased physical and emotional violence against women. The survey revealed that 27,000 women aged 15 and older saw a reduction of their income. The 27 countries that make the Union are advocating for the fastest ways to denounce acts of violence in Europe. Meanwhile, legislator Robert Biedron, the president of the Women's Rights and Gender Equality Commission of the European Parliament, says that they will be focusing on the issue of female inequality. Amidst the situation of violence in Colombia, the electoral campaign is gearing up prior to the legislative elections on March 13th. In this context, the social organizations that make up the electoral mission of observers stress that the fact that there are several women as candidates to the legislature. In these elections, for the first time, there are 4 lists with gender parity. In their pre-election report, the observers included a chapter on the violence against women in politics, which warns of a sustained increase in violent acts against women since 2006. The cited data points to 2021 as the year with the highest incidence of violence against women leaders and human rights defenders against the signatories of the peace agreement. Likewise, the Institute of Studies for Development and Peace, in its latest report on violence, covering the past 5 years, revealed that 23 women leaders were killed in 2021 and 178 since the signing of the peace accords. In Ecuador, a mission from the International Monetary Fund will start the 4th review of the expanded services program they have been running in the country since 2020. The Ecuadorian government expects that once the review is concluded, their IMF will be releasing $700 million as part of the agreed total financing of $6.5 billion, of which $4.8 billion have already been given to the country. Analysts and economists denounce that this agreement allows the Ecuadorian executive to reduce social investment and increasing layoffs in the public sector. Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro Moros announced the increase of the monthly minimum wage to around $28. This represented an 18-fold increase in the national minimum wage, which will be 50% pegged to Petro, the government's cryptocurrency. The head of the state made the announcement in an official act with a group of government employees. The president did not specify when the increase will take effect, only that it will be done in action and the exchange rate. On the other hand, the head of state reaffirmed the same unilateral coercive measures imposed against Russia are being applied against the Bolivarian nation since 2017, aimed at strengthening its economy. Maduro pointed out his government has received more than 500 sanctions during the last 8 years.
To produce iron, steel, briquettes, aluminum, cement, petrochemicals, oil, gasoline, gas, a diverse industrial production, pay taxes and turn this money into wages, income, social rights, health, education, housing, and food.
And we have more news coming up after a final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. Chinese President Xi Jinping and other leaders of the country attended the opening meeting of the 5th session of the 13th National Committee of the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference, held at the Great Hall of the People. At the meeting, the agenda for the session was reviewed and approved with a factual presence of nearly 2,000 members. Wang Yan, chairman of the consultative conference, delivered a work report on the standing committee to the session. Reviewing work in 2021, Wang said the committee of the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference and its standing committee fulfilled their duties with a focus on implementing the 14th five-year plan from 2021 to 2025 and embark on a new journey. The Consultative Conference is an important organ for a multi-party cooperation and political consultation and an important means of promoting socialist democracy in China's political activities. The session will last for 6 days. The two main political bodies in China are meeting Friday and Saturday in Beijing, the country's capital. The participants in these two meetings, popularly referred to as the two sessions, will be discussing the country's main objectives in the nation's move forward.
Including political advisors and legislators, are converging these days in Beijing for the much anticipated two-day annual meetings of the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference and the National People's Assembly. These are the two of the most important events on the country's political calendar. Main issues on the table are economic growth, defense, international politics, and ecology. As expected, observers will be closely monitoring the signals given by Chinese legislators and advisors on key issues like target GDP growth as the world's second-largest economy prepares for 2022, with an emphasis on a steady economic development amid multiple challenges globally and regionally.
China has the confidence, conditions, and capacities to achieve a stable, healthy, and sustainable development. China will continue to take sound steps to expand high-level openness and will work to build an open global economy.
Other than increasing their GDP, China's defense budget for 2022 is also a priority. Analysts believe China is very likely to increase military spending by 7% at a time of positive economic growth, although amid serious security threats. At the meetings, which are held at Beijing's Grand People's Palace, legislators and political advisors will also discuss ways to strengthen China's leadership in technology and innovation, consolidate green development, openness of the economy, boost rural revitalization, and combat the new coronavirus as China's zero-COVID policy enters its third year. Foreign Minister Wang Yi is also expected to outline China's diplomacy on issues such as the crisis in Ukraine, relations with the United States, and the islands of Taiwan. Both the Chinese people and the international community closely follow what is happening at these two sessions, because every year they send clear messages as to which direction the society and the economy will go. But this year, these are especially important issues for the threshold of the 20th Congress of the Chinese Communist Party, to be held late this year, which will define the political guidelines for the next 5 years.
Ramsey Peraza, teleSUR, Beijing, China.
Thank you, Ramsey, for this report, and we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please join us on social media for all the latest news. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. For telesur English, I'm Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.